venue for the first of our races here in North America. From Whistler we head to Park City next week, and then in 2 weeks time World Cup racing will conclude before Christmas in Lake Placid. But first we need to get our four-man race underway on this, the fastest ice on the planet. And the man who has just experienced it, Chris Spring, will be in the booth in a moment or two. He's forerun for all the races in the bobsled this weekend. Short start, and it drops away very rapidly. A steep run downhill into the first turn. Retired Oskars Kibermanis with the start record, 4.69, may not get close to that. Listen to the wind noise as the sled really accelerates quickly through fall away at 2 and down through wedge at 3. First brick pressure corner, the right-hander at turn 4. A little 5-6 transition that sets you up for corner 7. And 7, we've seen a lot of sleds flopping off the end. There's a little bend away here, corner 8, before you hit corner 9, the left-hander, and that can cause a lot of time lost. And then through 10 and 11, through corner 12, this is the critical one that sets you up for 13, 50-50, where we've seen a number of crashes this weekend, down through the Gold Rush Trail and into turn 16, Thunderbird. 4.5 G's of pressure there at 150 kilometers an hour in these four-man behemoths of ice racing. It is a huge challenge for the drivers, for the teams, and especially for the bodies, but you have to have your wits about. The air temperature now climbing to +2. It was about 0 at lunchtime, but the ice at -2. So a little bit of snow has been blustering around the place all day. Not too much staying in the track. And that's the good news. It's not dry, it's not wet and clumpy rather, so it shouldn't affect too much. You can see the warm-up area, or car park as it's otherwise known, at the top of the track is relatively snow-free. Last time we were here in 2019 for the World Championships, we had about half a metre of snow a night, every night. Make life entertaining for our track workers. As ever, they've done a fantastic job keeping this track absolutely in 100% tip-top condition. And that will be good news for our field of 10 sleds. Cedric Follador for Switzerland will lead us away. Our Olympic champion is in the mix as well. Francesco Friedrich, along with the silver medalist Hansi Lochner, and bronze medalist Justin Cripps will be undoubtedly watching in with interest to see what his former rivals do. Here that we may see Justin Cripps in a bobsled in the World Championships in St. Moritz, but before we get too excited, not necessarily in the regular World Championships. We'll just tease you a little with that as the season goes on. First sled of the BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup season. The honour goes to 28-year-old Swiss driver Cedric Follador, his second ever four-man race. Nicola Mariani makes his debut at 2. Dominic Hufschmidt, another new boy, at 3. They drop in. Quentin Giard behind. He is in 4. Raced a couple of races in the four-man. And a pretty decent load, but a little skid early on. Chris Spring, these sleds have a very different feel to anything we've seen so far with 2 seats.
Yeah, definitely. And the first thing you're going to notice, obviously, is we have 2 extra competitors. The sled is a lot longer, but it's so much heavier. Oh, and we see a big hit there out of 7 and a skid. It does right itself and gets back going straight down that straightaway as he comes into 11 here. He wants to get that sled under control. He does a great job there through 12, 13. But definitely the weight of these sleds, so much more pressure, and you're gonna have to steer a lot longer but smoother to create these nice lines. And 151.6, even with that mistake up top, we know that the track is fast today.
Boys whooping it up as they come into the station. 94.2 miles an hour, just as a loosener there for the first crew down. And with the weight of these sleds, as you say, you know, the extra length of the sled is part of it, but the extra couple of 100 kilos of meat makes a big difference as well. The snow is going to have very little effect on the speed. Track's pretty much covered all the way.
Yeah, and we see that mistake at the top of the track out of 2 there, which doesn't help with the speed at the top, and this tap out of 7 with the skid. But he does get this lucky tap to keep the sled moving straight, and then he handles the bottom really well, which we see with that top speed at the bottom.
Saying to Melanie Hassler, she's the only driver we've seen not get the straightening up tap, and that's what cost her the gold medal earlier on today. Next up, Taylor Austin from Canada, his second ever World Cup start. He was first and third in the four-man North America's Cup races here a couple of weeks ago. And some of the athletes you know well. Shaq Murray-Lawrence made his debut with Chris Spring in St. Moritz in 2021. Cyrus Gray, 30 tomorrow, also made his debut with Spring in Winterberg 2021. And Davidson D'Souza, a World Cup rookie. So this is very much a new crew together this season. In fact, D'Souza on the back has only done 2 bobsled races, and they were the 2 North American four-mans a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and that was his first races for Canada, and actually Davidson used to slide for the Brazilian team behind Edson Bindalati and was a competitor at the 2014 Olympic Games before moving to Canada and now becoming a resident here of Canada and now sliding under the Canadian system. Great start there at the top, and you see that they're up already by 9/100ths of a second with that 490 getaway.
We've seen in the two-man and in the monobob, and especially in the skeleton, some wild variations in times. Do you think four-man is going to be tighter, closer?
Yeah, it will be much tighter because of the speed and because the track, it gets a little bit shorter. Not in length, but because a little bit of a wild ride at the exit of 13 there, but he's handling the bottom here well, and he's opened up that gap 2900ths with that top speed, 153.3, wow. 3700ths, really put on the jets there at the end.
95.2 miles an hour.
Yeah, so the downtime here, 51.09, much quicker than we saw in the two-man yesterday from the guys. And that's what I mean about the track getting shorter. So then those times, those differences at the bottom are going to be a lot closer than what we saw yesterday.
Everything greatly accelerated in the driver's brain as well.
Yeah, so you see here in 7, he does have a tap on the right-hand side as he comes out. Just there, and it's because he's a little bit too high at the end of the corner without the pressure, but he does get that little bit of a lucky tap, setting him up straight. And that's what we do say in the sport of bobsleigh. You need good equipment, a good drive, a good start, but you also need a little bit of luck.
Just about got it off 50-50. There's Taylor Austin, so he leads from Cedric Follador. First 2 sleds down. Next up, Hansi Lochner, our Olympic silver medalist in the four-man bobsleigh. 9 wins, 9 silver medals, 5 bronze medals. 2017 four-man world champion. This is his 45th four-man World Cup start. Florian Bauer at 2. New boy Georg Fleischauer. He makes his World Cup debut at 3. He's a 400-meter hurdler. And Christian Rusp, the reliable brakeman, his 42nd four-man World Cup start.
Yeah, let's see what the start time is. Only 4:93, and I think that's a lot attributed to the new crew here. Like you said, a couple newcomers to the sled, and Christian's been in the sled for a long time, but just getting that cohesion is always going to be difficult with 4 big guys like we are getting into this small, tiny space. But let's see what Johannes can do on the way down the track, if he can eat up a little bit of this time he's lost at the top.
Hurt his back earlier in the week doing housework, well, actually making his bed. He said, "How did you call it housework?" Yeah. He said, "Okay, never for me."
A little early. He got away with it there. Definitely got away with it. I was going to say that I'm cursing these athletes again, but 1800s back. We don't see the top speed that we saw from the sled of Taylor Austin, 2 kilometers back. Yeah. He slides into second place, 0.3 of a second off the lead.
Yeah, wiped out some of that speed. What we didn't see was the drama on the exit of 50-50. What we also didn't see was him hauling it around in 11 and 12 and taking the speed out of the sled.
Yeah, these guys know there's going to be a lot of improvement here for the second run, not just at the top of the track with the start time, but also with the drive. As we see here on the exit of 11, the sled gets picked up into that right wall, and Hansi does just enough in 12 to miss that early push-away entrance in 13 and handles the exit here pretty well. A little bit of steering there, but he knew that he had to do a little bit more just to make it off that curve.
Well, having crashed early in the week in training, he didn't want to do that again, so you have to work pretty hard to get it back.
Yeah, Hansi there looks a little bit confused. He's asking for the start time, and then he heard it and was definitely a little confused starting 493, where typically he's starting low 80s or even high 70s on this track, high 470s.
Marcus Treichl, 7th in the two-man yesterday, 35th World Cup start for him. But this is a new crew as well. Dominik Hanschietz at 2 has never started a World Cup four-man race. He's only done 3 Bob races before now. And Sascha Stepan and Christian Huber experienced, but they're part of Benny Meyer's crew. And Meyer now retired, so they've moved over. So this crew, again, has not raced before in the World Cup.
And Marcus had some great runs in training. He was a little bit of trouble there getting in from the guys behind him, but they do manage to get in. But that is going to hamper their velocity here if we see the 3rd fastest speed off of that start time. Some problems at the top here as well, so things not going to plan here for Marcus at the top of the track.
Raced here in the 2019 Worlds, but only in the two-man sled. So this week is really his first back on the ice.
And only 1400s back, so the sled is moving quite well, and he's doing enough to stay within striking distance here of the top sled. As he comes into 12, works really nice lines there, 12, 13, and we're going to see some high speeds here at the bottom.
Well, right now he's going to pick off Hansi Lochner and Cedric Follador. And ooh, everybody popping their heads up a little previously there, 51.38 to Hansi Lochner's 51.39. If the brakeman's heads had been up any earlier, that would have been a dead heat.
Yeah, definitely a few things to clean up there from the guys in the back behind the sled. Not only their load, but just little things like staying down until the finish line. These are worth hundredths, and they're easy hundredths to achieve as well.
It is all just getting back into the repetition of it.
So we see here on the push, Marcus gets in, and we just see the left leg from their number 2 athlete get hung up a little bit, and that not only contributes to a poorer start time, but also poor start velocity, which is really important to carry that speed into the track.
Yeah, Dominik Hanschietz at 2, only his 4th ever bobsled race. 3 previous four-man races in January of this year with Marcus Kaiser in Europa Cup. But everybody popping their heads up before the line. Again, the coaches will be reminding them, sit down until you hear the driver. Next up, Michael Vogt for Switzerland, 4th, just out of the medals in the two-man yesterday. Now this is a cohesive crew. Alan Noosa, Silvio Weber and Sandro Michel have all raced together with Michael Vogt for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, Mickey was 4th at the 2019 World Championships here in the four-man race, and so 4th again yesterday in the two-man. He's going to be getting tired of those 4th place results and hoping to climb that onto the podium today in the four-man competition. Well,
he did take a medal a couple of weeks ago, bronze medal in one of the NAC four-man races. 400s up. This is where he needs to be. He needs to be ahead of Taylor Austin of Canada.
Again, a little unsteady there, the sled in 6. He's working really hard for these lines. They may look quite nice, but he's working really hard to achieve these lines, and he's 100th back, and that's because he's oversteering in a lot of these corners.
Looks a little bit skiddy, which is not common for a four-man. 900s. It's really steering from the back, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and we'll see here at the bottom, losing a bit of time, 1500s back. He will slide into 2nd place, and again the brakemen are popping up there before the finish line. And we see Rico Peter there, and Peter Ramsadel a little bit upset with that run, and like I said, just a few small mistakes on the way down, and they just keep adding up and building on the way down the track.
Like a race car, Chris, you adjust the way that the runners are tracking, either straight or just towing in a little bit, towing out a bit if you want the back to be looser, back to follow you more accurately. So looks like their setup is not working well in these conditions.
Yeah, perhaps a bit of the snow falling today might have caught them off guard here, and we see in 6 he works really hard, and you see the back end just sliding down ever so slightly there, losing pressure in the sled, and he has to work hard on the exit to get it off of 6, and then sliding up into 7.
You see the way the skid, it digs into the ice as well as you pick up onto 7, and yep. Well, it's all about experience, and nobody's raced on this track really at all for 3 years, and not a lot of experience for a number of the crews. Taylor Austin leads from Michael Vogt and Marcus Treichl, 5 down, 5 to go.
Yeah, and we see that experience there with Taylor Austin, the Canadian, in front, and by 2/10 or 22 hundredths. That's that experience of driving this track year after year, and that's where that comes into play.
First time here for Christoph Hafer of Germany. He has raced in Lake Placid in World Cup before. The 30-year-old was 5th yesterday. Michael Salzer, Matthias Sommer and Tobias Schneider, all pretty experienced brakemen. Schneider, the only medalist in the crew in a four-man, got a bronze with Hansi Lochner a couple of years back.
Yeah, and a great start there, 4.86, and a very nice exit of 1. Still on that right-hand wall in the exit of 2. It's a lot of that, a lot of sleds we've seen are catching them off guard, being on that right wall, tapping before 3. But the top of this track here for Christoph is very nice. We're seeing some really nice lines, carrying that speed from the start. As we see here, he's dead even with Taylor Austin and his team.
Well, the German sled will have plenty of speed at the bottom as long as he doesn't scrub too much off here, dropping behind the Canadian. 1:53.3 at the bottom is top speed for Taylor Austin. Where is he going to be? Third at the line, and that is tied with Marcus Treichl. So Taylor Austin has, brakes. Now that's the opposite of sitting up too early, and they have gone, the brake handles have clearly broken there, because they have gone straight off the outrun, up the rubber and along the concrete, and just dropped off the end there.
This is terrible for the team and for the equipment. This is...
Hafer walks away, I can't believe it.
Yeah, there must have been a malfunction there. Something happened. You know, when we cross the finish line, we see a thumbs up there from Christoph, making sure everyone's okay. That's the main thing, to make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah, bumpy old ride when they drop off the end there. And it's not intended that sleds ever get that high up. That's Matthias Sommer, actually, who was there. So Tobias Schneider on the brakes. I mean, there's no question he will have been trying to brake, but something broke. The brakes they don't work on the wheels. Obviously, look, there's no ice coming out from behind at all.
Right, and we see, like, Tobias is up and he's pulling as hard as possible. We see that nothing is catching. We see the brakes down, but nothing is catching.
They haven't gone all the way down to dig into the ice. It's basically kind of the forked end, almost like of a shovel, and you pull on these handles and it's a simple pivot. It just digs it down into the ice, or in this case, and he's in the car park. I mean, those runners are absolutely trashed. Absolutely trashed.
Yeah, these are tough pictures to see with our sleds worth, 6 figures. The runners themselves, over 10,000 euros for a set, and we treat them like gold, and never are they touching anything other than the ice. And in this situation, we feel for the athletes here, and good to see that everyone walks away.
Yeah. But they're absolutely livid, aren't they? There's going to be a lot of helmets being thrown around in there. But I mean, that is so rare. It does happen occasionally, but and again, that's why down at the finish area, the officials, Ilko, our Finnish cameraman, have to be so alert to the speed at which the sled is coming in. That's broken the steering as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, the front runners there are usually not. They're usually not turned that much, and so that's broken through at the bottom there. Perhaps the steering plate, the front axle.
Or maybe even sheared it off the mounting. I mean, that's a big impact. Look, it's come off the top of the ramp and then it's dropped down, 10, 15 centimeters off that concrete outrun into the car park and then got stopped. I mean, got stopped because there's a change of gradient as the road comes past it. Otherwise, they'd have been back under the track. I mean, that doesn't even bear thinking about. Well, there is Christoph Hafer. Matthias Höpfner with the white cap. There'll be a lot of work for Marco and the crew to sort that out. And of course, they're all going into their crates tonight to go onto the trucks to be trucked down to Salt Lake City.
And even though Christoph and the team did cross the finish line safely, I doubt we'll see this sled again today.
No, I kind of agree. And the other problem is we're not in Germany, we're not in Europe, so it's not just a van ride from FES or whatever with new parts. We're in North America. Whatever they've got, and whatever they haven't got, ain't going to get. They might by Lake Placid in 2 weeks' time, but it's going to be, if there's really major damage on that sled that can't be welded or replaced, then, yeah.
Yeah, and the beauty of our sport, we are such a close-knit community. There will be other nations definitely helping out wherever we can. I know that earlier last week, the Swiss slider, Michael Vogt, had some problems with the leaf spring in his sled, and they asked us here in town, the Canadians, if we could borrow another leaf spring until we headed over to Europe, and we were happy to oblige. And so I know that the community is going to get behind here and make sure that they are fit enough and that sled is ready to go for the race here next week in Park City.
Well, the only problem, of course, is that nobody else has FES sleds. You know, which is great, and of course you've had that with Eurotech for so many years at Canada, but the downside of that is nobody's got spares other than the FES crew who are here with the German team. So again, all the glamour of hefting big sleds around. You know, it's so easy to get hurt doing this, backs and legs and you know, knuckles and hands and everything, but all part of life. Hefting it onto the back of a pickup, and so we have track holds for crashes. Never had a car park hold in 20 years of bobsledding before, and I don't suppose if I do it for another 20 years it will happen again. But yeah, that is definitely a mechanical failure and not a brakeman error.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's good to see that the guys are all up and walking around, and the medics up there, lots of bodies here to check on them to make sure that you know, perhaps, you know, no one passed out or there was, you know, any, you know, ill fortune to the athletes on the way up the track, and that they're walking away from this to race another day next week.
Yep, definitely. And probably just as well we don't have an effects mic up there as well. I should think there were some fairly fruity Germanic phrases being tossed around as they steamed straight through the station and out the other side. Lamindine went all the way up the outrun in Winterberg about, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. And I can remember Simone Battazzo in La Plan coming straight through and out the other side of the tunnel where the finish area is. Again, brake failure and just like an express train that could not stop. So it does happen occasionally. It's not very common. One of the Russian sleds as well in St. Moritz, before they built the extension and the new finish dock, the year when there was no snow, whatever year that was, went straight off the end through the snowbanks and down this sort of brown grassy field. That's a while ago. John Morgan would remember exactly what year and exactly who. Might have been Yevgeny Popov. Well, there's Chris Woolley in the red jacket, who's the coach for the Swiss team, because, of course, everybody else has still got to go, and the next sled is going to be Seaman Friedli.
Yeah, as we see here, the track workers, the track crew here, they're just cleaning those spurs or those start grooves to make sure that they're free from snow, to give Simone and the rest of the field the best chance possible to have their best start time. And we're probably about 1 minute away here, so doing their best to get all of that snow out, and then off we go with Simone and his crew.
Well, now, as they crossed the line, and before the drama happened, I was about to say that Taylor Austin is he's not even one step, he's several steps ahead of the pack at the moment. Michael Vogt in second, 2200s back. Then 700s behind him, Markus Treichl and Christoph Hafer. 100th behind them, Hansi Lochner. 600, 700 behind him, Cedric Follador. So from second at the moment down to 6 is 1500ths of a second. And that might possibly be the battle for fourth place. Michael Vogt, Treichl, maybe Hafer, Lochner. We've still got yesterday's gold medalist Francesco Friedrich, the Olympic champion, to come. We've still got Brad Hall to come. And actually, let's not count out Frankie Del Duca either. What about Seaman Friedli? Who knows? North America's Cup bronze here 2 weeks ago. Might happen. Andreas Haas behind him, Gregory Jones, and a new boy to the team, making his four-man World Cup debut, Roman Vegli, the 26-year-old on the brakes. And boy, he'll be feeling the pressure of the spotlight. Right, remember to pull the brakes as hard as you can. Vegli, only 5 races in his career, none in the World Cup, and all of them with Timo Rohner.
Yeah, we're going to see some fast start times here from these remaining 4 teams. Simon, like you said, previous brakeman with Rico Peter, so he's no stranger to pushing fast. Obviously, Francesco Friedrich holding many start records all over the world. Brad Hall pushing the fastest time of the competition yesterday in the second heat. And then Frankie Del Duca and his team, also known for their very fast starts.
And of course, Frankie knows the track pretty well. Simon Friedli, gold medalist in 4-man in the World Cup here in 2016, breaking for Rico Peter, who cheers him away at the top. 489, that's what they need. Again, okay, ignore what happened. Let's just go big, go hard right from the start.
And same problem as most of the sleds coming down. A little bit of a tap on the right-hand side, exit 2. He's handling the top of this track pretty well, but again, that commentator's curse puts him away late into 6, but he's back on track already here, the exit of 7. Whoa, and that's a little bit of a skid there.
That's the Swiss skid, and all of them have just had it. Melanie Hassler in the 2-man, and both Swiss sleds in the 4-man have had that big, long drift.
Yeah, and you see here he's 3600ths back, and he's going to be really hard-pressed to stay in touch with the field here. Now half a second back, not getting those top speeds at the bottom. Only 150.6. I say that sparingly, but 150.6 kilometers an hour, ending up 6/10 back from the lead.
Well, just to put that into perspective, that would be an absolute guaranteed ban from driving if the Canadian police caught you doing that on the public highway, never mind on ice. So, Simon Friedli behind teammate Cedric Follador.
And we see there on the exit of 4, wow, look at the sled lift up there quite a lot. It's because he's early on to 5 getting pushed away, and this is that Swiss skid that we're going to talk about. Gets a bit of a lucky bump there, the one that Melanie didn't get earlier today. That's the tap we're looking for, just if it does break into a skid, that little bit of luck to send us back straight again. But yeah, a little bit disappointing for Simon, but he's got a second heat there to climb up the ladder again.
Little chance with Hansi Lochner. There was Andreas Haas, and here is your Olympic champion, your world champion, your European champion, your World Cup champion in 2- and 4-man. Francesco Friedrich with Torsten Margis joining the 4-man crew, and Candy Bauer and Alex Schuller, who won yesterday with him. Alex, 25 years old. This is his 24th 4-man World Cup. 21 medals in the previous 23 races with Francesco. It's a pretty good team to get into.
And 4.78, just a massive start. And if you notice here, if you guys are watching at home, if you go back and see, they were off the block within 4 seconds of that clock going green, making sure that as minimal snow as possible is in those start spurs so that they can have that best chance of that fastest start. And that's what we come to expect from this team. 4.78, and he's already stretching that lead out 33 hundredths of a second.
Oh, big skid there for him at least.
Yeah, but nice and early on to 12, and that's what he wants here. He's going to have to, yep, nice work there. He is working quite hard here at the bottom of the track, making sure that that sled is making it down in all 4s.
Again, the back of the sled walking around a lot.
Yeah, and only a 10th up at the bottom here. He didn't have to work that hard at the bottom. He was making sure of those steers, and it did cost him a lot of time there. But that start time definitely helped him to get into the lead here after Heat 1, or, sorry, towards the end of Heat 1.
Yeah. So there's big Torsten Margis. 60th 4-man World Cup race for Torsten Margis.
So we see here 11 to 12. She has a good transition. It's going a little bit left to right, which is nice. And then he has this nice exit of 12, but he's making sure he gets over into 13, putting himself into a little bit of a skid. And then he's making sure he's coming off of 13, again, putting himself into a bit of a skid. And then skidding away into 14. He's just working a little bit too much, but definitely making sure he arrives at the bottom, shiny side down.
Making it look more like a monobob than a 4-man, but there he is. He is still comfortably in the lead, a 10th of a second ahead of Taylor Austin, who may end up in a top 3 position. With his back to us is coach Graham Richardson as Brad Hall and the crew derobe. Aaron Gulliver makes his World Cup debut, the man from Bewdley in Worcestershire. his second four-man race. His first was in the NAC a couple of weeks ago. The 25-year-old joins Big T, Taylor Lawrence, 26, and Greg Cackett, 33 years of age. This is Brad's 40th World Cup start in four-man. Will it be the first that he claims a gold medal in?
Yeah, and again, a big start time from the guys from Great Britain. 4.79 straight out of corner one, and they are going to be hunting down that top step of the podium, although skid out of 2 doesn't help them. That's why they're already 800ths back.
Third best speed and still skidding here.
Oh, losing the back end there in 70s, very high. Doesn't really have the speed now. He's got a lot of work to do at the end of this track.
If he's in trouble in 7, he's going to be in trouble in 10 as well. Safely through 13 he is now. It's looking a little bit more controlled now as the speed builds, but he's 2200s back.
And let's see at the bottom here what he can muster up. 1500s back puts him into 3rd place, but that was a huge mistake in 7. We'll see it here in the replay. The back end just wanting to slide down that curve.
All right, top 3 for Brad Hall behind Taylor Austin and Francesco Friedrich. A medal still within their grasp potentially, but a lively ride.
Yeah, so this is the exit here of 6, and he comes into 7, and the sled is going to shoot up towards the roof, and he doesn't have much pressure, and you see the back end, look at this, start to slide down. A lot of height at the exit, comes out, he's very close to that right wall. He does get away with it, but he lost a lot of time up there.
Doesn't take much to separate you from a man like Francesco Friedrich, even when Francie has had a bit of a wild ride. There's Brad Hall. They're clearing the ice off the sled before it gets weighed, because every gram counts.
Yeah, he knows it. He knows that one.
Final sled in the first heat then. Frankie Del Duca with Adrian Adams, the 36-year-old veteran, in his 30th four-man start. Hakeem Abdul Sabur and Manio Mitchell, who jumped in the two-man for Hakeem for the second heat yesterday after Frankie and Hakeem crashed in heat 1. So a 4x400 meter Olympic silver medalist from London 2012 on the brakes. 10.04 400 meter. We have got some quick 100 meter runners in this sport.
And the boys get in and down with a 4.87. Put some 900s back at the start, but Frankie, even though he had that crash yesterday, very accomplished driver, and we're going to see some good lines here hopefully on the way down the track.
Took 2 four-man silvers in the North American Cup races a couple of weeks ago on this track. Started like so many.
He's got a lot of pressure there at the exit of 6. And he's working really hard here on the way down the track. Already 3,500s back.
Well, 3,200s back is 4th place from the lead, so he's going to drop into the group with Vogt, Treichl, Hafer, Lochner.
As we see here at the exit here, already just over half a second back.
And across the line, 9th place, 51.53 for Frankie Del Duca. Best World Cup result in his brief career so far. This is only his 3rd World Cup race in four-man driving. Has been an 11th place finish. So he is going to improve on that, and PBs are what the world is all about when you're competing, beating yourself every time out.
Look at that height at the exit of 6 there, and he comes crashing down onto that left-hand wall. He's low in 7. That pressure is going to want to stay in the sled, but he manages it well, comes out with that straight line into 9. You see there the Brits just weighing their sled, making sure they're at underneath that maximum weight.
Hey, sometimes you do your best, and we came back today and our best.
There you go, Frank Del Duca, last sled down, but at the end of the second heat, we will see this man, Francesco Friedrich, because he is our first round leader by not much, by a little bit more than in the four-man yesterday, where the lead over Brad Hall was just 100th of a second. He has a 10th in hand, not over Brad Hall. He's got 1500ths over Brad Hall. In second place is Canada's Taylor Austin. Obviously, Chris Spring will take much of the credit for that because his brakemen are helping out on the back of the sled, but that is a great run from Taylor to be in that sort of position after the first heat. How's he going to cope with that pressure?
Yeah, it's uncharted territory for Taylor. It's his second World Cup start ever in his career, first one here in Whistler, and to be a 10th behind the great Francesco Friedrich, this is a lot of pressure on Taylor, but he's someone that's been around for a long time. He's a cool character. He'll be handling it, as always, as calm as he can be.
He was first and third a couple of weeks ago with the four-man NAC races. Let's see if he can claim a World Cup medal in his second ever race. You can join us when we come back at 4 local, 7 Eastern, midnight GMT for Heat 2. Until then, for Chris Spring and the crew, I'm Martin Haven saying thanks for joining us. We'll see you then. Bye for now.